Hey guys, Amanda here. It has been a minute since I have come on video. It's been, I guess, over 3 months now, I think. I think the last one I did was December. So I've been in Tulum this whole time. I'm still here. It's amazing. I am living in the jungle and loving it. And I've been here diving deep, and I've gone deep many times, and it's required a ton of integration. So yeah, I've just been processing and integrating and pulling all the pieces together, and it's just, yeah, I've just been going through it, honestly. Not in a bad way, but yeah, it's just been kind of a bit of a whirlwind, and it's just all kind of come together quite quickly this weekend in a kind of crazy way. But yeah, I had some deep healing to do in the last week, and including a water cleanse. So I'm just coming off a water cleanse, and we're just coming off Easter weekend. It's still technically Easter weekend, Easter Monday as I'm filming this. And there's that energy of rebirth, of resurrection, of course, and that's what we're going to be diving into today. And I'm feeling that energy myself, so I felt really, really inspired to get on and talk about this now. And it's actually a rather deep and complex topic that I'm diving into right now. Jesus, the resurrection, ego death, and the path to wholeness. How do they all connect? And, diving into each layer of these things, and none of them are simple, right? So here we go on this lovely little adventure. And before I dive in, I hope you're all handling the shifting energies well. I hope you're feeling good about where you are, and if you're not, I am here. So just wanted to throw that in there before we get into today's topic. Now, also, I want to just give you forewarning. Please bear with me. I don't always use notes for these. I often don't. But today I have a few notes just because this topic is pretty deep and complex. And I also have a few quotations or Jesus sayings. Yeah, I'm not super religious. Sorry, guys. I grew up Christian, just full disclosure, but I don't strongly identify with that. Although, part of what I've been diving into is the goddess traditions, the goddess path, because if we actually go back, there is these scriptures that were found, the Nag Hammadi scriptures, and they are a total game changer. And there's a lot in the world that is incomplete / hidden, whether it's deliberate or accidental. We don't need to get into right now. It could be a combination of both, but there is much knowledge that is buried and is now coming to the surface. And that's kind of it's symbolic of what is going on globally right now, the big shift that is happening of energies, of consciousness, of awakening. And so yeah, it's really important that more and more of us become aware of these many different layers and how everything interconnects. And just to give you a brief background, I have actually had a very interesting background. I have learned a little of a lot of things, or maybe not a little, like kind of a lot about a lot of things. I'm a learner. I love learning. I'm a nerd. I actually loved writing my papers in grad school. Like, what? Because I loved pouring through the literature and pulling the pieces together. And it was actually one of my strengths. It's one of my gifts. And so it's something that I've really been trying to focus more on. But I've been kind of deep in the information gathering and collecting and in integration. So now it is time for me to, and I have a lot to share. And I've also traveled a lot, seen many different parts of the world, had many different jobs and things like that. So I've experienced a lot. And for a while, I didn't really understand where it was all taking me, like biology, psychology, fashion, art history. Like, let's go into nonprofits and teach English, and it just seemed like I had no path, and kind of for a while I didn't. But, it wasn't really accidental, because each step along the way, I picked up really, really important knowledge for myself and for my growth. So now I'm in a position where I'm like, oh my gosh, this all actually connects in some bizarre, weird ways sometimes. But now we're at the point where we can, dive in. So let's do it. Yesterday was Easter, and Easter is obviously the holiday of bunny and chocolates and all of that, and of course Jesus's resurrection. That is the true the reason that we celebrate is Jesus. We love Jesus in America and a lot of the world. I am not like a Bible thumper or a Jesus lover in that way that, it has a negative connotation. But of course, I love everything that he embodies, because at its core, his message is love, is unconditional love, and it is oneness. It is this path of transcendence, and that is what we are going to dive into here. So yesterday, just to give you a little further deeper context, because I love this stuff and I think it's important, Easter actually goes way back before Jesus's time, Jesus's lifetime. Thousands and thousands of years, this holiday was a holiday of the goddess tradition that was thousands of years old. And it was called Ostara, I always pronounce it wrong, Ostara, in the Saxon, Celtic, and Welsh traditions, which I actually have ancestry from that region. So I just these little inklings, I get curious and I want to dive deeper. So it's also connected to the goddess Astarte, Ishtar, Asherah, Inanna. There's a lot of names there. It's just different names for the same goddess depending on the region of the world and the specific time frame. But she is the queen of heaven and earth. And she has come through for me, and in interesting ways, which I'll get into in another video. But so I just thought that was super interesting to learn and to understand. The actual true origins of Easter were based in this goddess tradition. And the origin of the egg hunt itself, the egg represents self-contained perfection. So the Easter egg represented the goddess, and whoever found the egg would be bestowed a blessing by the goddess. I think that's quite beautiful and a fun, interesting tidbit as we, well, I guess the holiday was yesterday, but, as we consider the holiday and move forward, just like a different way to honor the tradition, because now it makes a little bit more sense. Candy and eggs. I don't know. It's fun for the kids, right? But, what did that have to do with Jesus? Anyway, so getting back to Jesus is the embodied emanation of Christos. And what Christos is, Christos, is the universal divine principle of spirit, which is present in everything in the universe. And Jesus and the Holy Family are actually directly connected to the goddess tradition, to the priestess lineage that goes way back. Mary herself, Mother Mary, and Mary Magdalene. Let's not forget Mary Magdalene. The church did come out, I think it was 1969, and admitted she was not a whore. But to this day, people still don't really know that, and she's still kind of understood. I mean, I remember I was in Sunday school, and I had this understanding of her as that. And that was back, in the 90s? So yeah, we're talking that they kind of admitted it, but really didn't do anything about it, because the patriarchy is still very strong. And we're seeing that right now. We're seeing the manifestation of we've gone too far, way too far with the patriarchal ways. So it's breaking down as it should. And now it is time, it is an opportunity for us to rise up, to resurrect, to be reborn, to give rebirth to a new earth. And now is the time for us to all come back together and really understand and integrate the true teachings of Jesus, the true path of Jesus, the true wisdom of Jesus. So when he died and resurrected, his resurrection it was not about a physical resurrection of the physical body, which a lot of people are like, oh, it's a make-believe story. Well, I mean, that's because it really wasn't about that. It's not about him coming back to life in a physical way. It was about the ego death. The resurrection itself is about the ego death. The teaching of the resurrection is about having an ego death, having a part of yourself die, and being reborn, cleansed, and purified. Something new. Shedding layers. It's like shedding the layers of the skin might be an example for you to understand. It's the only animal that sheds its skin while it's alive. So this is the process of shedding the skin. The resurrection is the shedding of the skin so we can grow into something bigger, better, beautiful, more brilliant. And that's really what it's more about, is these notions of like brilliance and radiance and purity. It is about, coming into this sense of harmony. And so just to go back for a second, the ego death is kind of like the dark night of the soul. So the cave that Jesus was in kind of represents the dark night of the soul. So just to bring it all together, ego is identification with the physical. So when we talk about the ego death, we're very much talking about not identifying so strongly with this physical body, which is a difficult concept for a lot of people to understand. So to believe that you are the body is a sin, original sin, in the original way that sin was actually used. And what sin actually meant in the past was inaccurate assumption. So it's an inaccurate assumption to believe that we are the body itself. So we have to transcend these ideas. And what's really wrong with this is that it is a belief based in separation, and separation leads to fear, and fear is the foundation for everything that is going wrong in the world. So it's separation and death. So the belief in death basically creates all suffering. And I had these notes that downloaded to me, so I kind of just want to read that. The belief in death ultimately creates all suffering and all fear based in fear of death. Anything that threatens our existence, whether it be physical or social. So what we fear, we hate because we can't handle the feelings that arise when the sensations and emotions associated with fear arise. So we separate and hate to keep those feelings far away, to keep that thing that we hate far away. So that's where this idea of separation comes from. That's what it's really based in, and that's why it's not helpful. So it's the biggest epidemic in society right now is fear, because fear leads to this separation, this hatred, and that's what's causing all the strife and the misunderstanding, and it's all an illusion. The truth of the matter, as Jesus preached, is that we are actually all one. So if we come back to this knowing, then we will transcend these fear-based limitations, and we will transcend the ego. We will transcend this denser way of being and of living. And that's what they mean by the ascension. It's actually Ascension, a lot of people call it. The ascension is an ascension. It's a lightening and a lifting by raising our vibration by going in to the truest wisdom of all, the source of wisdom, the heart. And that is what Jesus preached. There are many lost scriptures, and they have been found, but they haven't really been widely published or embraced or acknowledged. So, divided we fall, right? And Jesus came here to show us the way forward. And now it is time for us to reclaim that path and to really truly reclaim his wisdom, the truth of his wisdom. So when he said, I and my Father are one, he was talking about oneness. He was talking about this idea of no separation. And this idea that we are all one and we are all one with God. And there's different layers of understanding to that. People have different beliefs related to that we are God and we are one with God and all of that. But it's all this idea that we are one with Source. We are all connected to Source. We are all united together. Here's an analogy. We're all made mostly of water. Water is in everything. So if water is in everything, we're connected to everything by extension, right? So if you bring it back to that, the whole idea of oneness and connection actually begins to make some sense. So crucified also means to take power from. So when we actually look at Jesus being crucified, they were taking his power. They were trying to take his power. And we're all having our power taken away from us right now. We have all been disconnected from this idea that we can connect directly with Source. And when we fail to understand this because we've been understanding instead of understanding is the knowing from our inner source of wisdom. This is the truest source, but we've been disconnected from that truth because we've been identifying with the body, with the ego consciousness, with the fear. So we have to be in the world, but not really of it, as he said as well. And if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must be born again. We must go through the ego death. We must go through that dark night of the soul. So part of you must die in order to be reborn. It does not mean your physical body has to die. It means that part of you that is keeping you limited has to be released, has to let go. And that is usually not an easy process. This is why we call it the dark night of the soul. A lot of people would refer to it as the hero's journey or something like that. But it is this process of going down into the underworld, which is actually what Inanna represents too, the goddess that I mentioned at the beginning. A few names for her. But she goes down into the underworld and has to release layers of her, 7 of her belongings, technically, according to the myth. But it all was symbolic of each of the chakras and everything. So she had to release every layer as she went down, and then she had to have this realization, this understanding, and before she could be reborn and purified and a more fuller, completely illuminated version of herself. So that's what it's really all about. That is what this whole resurrection idea is about. I pray, Father, that they may all be one, just as you and I are one. That is that's the message, that they may all be one. That's oneness. That is what he preached. And that's in a regular gospel, John 17:21, if you want to look it up. So Christ consciousness, that term has been thrown around a lot. What does that mean? It means no ego. It means oneness. So, when he said, I am the resurrection, it means he's egoless. He's in a state of no fear, where fear can't exist. And that is the state that we are all trying to ascend into. We're trying to transcend the fear, to transmute it, so that we can be in a state of harmony and bliss and oneness and love. Love, love, love. That's what it all comes back to, right? Love thy neighbor and, love thy neighbor as thyself, that really actually has to reflect back on us. Like, do we actually love ourselves? And that's where the deeper inner work comes in. So, I just want to end with this other quotation that was found in a lost scripture that was found in a Buddhist temple in the Himalayas, in Tibet, I believe. So it was published in The Unknown Life of Jesus Christ. Enter into your temple, into your own heart. Illuminate it with good thoughts, patience, and the unflinching confidence you should place in your Father, for God has created you in his image, innocent, pure of soul, with a heart filled with kindness, and destined not to the conception of evil projects, but to be the sanctuary of love and justice. So he right there just said, our temple is our heart. And we have become so disconnected from our bodies. So step number 1 is reconnect with your body. Reconnect with the temple that is your body. Your body is your temple, and your heart is your innermost temple. So reconnecting with the heart is the biggest lesson humanity has right now. We all have to learn that lesson, to go from the head back down to the heart. From the head to the heart. Many of us focus on the pineal gland. I did as well. My ascension trainer, she started off the pineal gland as well. And once we get to a certain point in the process, we realize the truest source of wisdom is actually here. It's actually here at the heart. So this is where we need to focus on opening up, because so many of us have been closed off to receiving. Receiving in particular, but also giving. Both ways, I suppose. Many women are closed off in the receiving way, I think. But anyway, so it is definitely not an easy journey, but this is what Jesus came here to show us. This is why he reincarnated into this earth, into his lifetime, into this 3D dimension. He incarnated here to show us the way. He is a way shower. That's how I consider him to be. I don't call him a savior, because I don't believe that anything outside of us can save us. That is what the trouble that I have with people who call him the savior, and why I don't identify with religion itself. I don't think we should put any power outside of ourselves. We can have guides that help us on the path of inner self-discovery, but ultimately it is up to us to do the work, to dive in. That's what diving in means, diving in here, to dive in and do the work. And it isn't easy. And I know that most of us want somebody to just give us a quick fix, a pill, do something, but it doesn't work like that. So, now we have all these teachings that are here for us, that we have a new, fresh understanding of, that we can go back to and say, okay, this is what they said. This is what it means. This is the way forward. Okay, what do I do now? What is one small step I can do today to be more love, to fully embody love more completely? Maybe not fully, but what's a little bit more I can do today? Check in with yourself regularly. Am I embodying love? Am I loving my temple? Am I treating my body like a temple? And that gets into the physical. Jesus also talked about that. He talked about diet, believe it or not, because I don't think people really, really realize that. Well, I mean, look at our society. Look at what people eat at church. I doubt people really pay attention at all to what he actually said half the time. But anyway, anything based in fear, that is a clear sign, run away. There is no fear-based God. That's nonsense. So God is love, and everything should come back to love. Come back to the heart, come back to the love. So I will leave it with that today. It's already a lot longer than I anticipated. So I love you guys, onward and upward, and I will get into the rest of it soon, because the rest of it relates to wholeness, because once we emerge, it is this path to wholeness. So I will leave you that little tidbit, and I will see you soon.